The first time Lily asked me to be her boyfriend, there were 10 people in the room watching us, and not one of them knew it was a lie. Only she and I did. My name is Sam. I am 26, and I live alone in a small one-bedroom apartment on the edge of Milwaukee, Wisconsin. The place is simple. Old cabinets in the kitchen, a couch that has seen better days, and a window that looks out over the parking lot. It is not fancy, but when I drop my keys on the counter at the end of the day, I know everything in there is mine. That has always been enough for me. I work as an HVAC technician. That means I spend my days fixing air conditioners, heaters, and hot water systems all over the city. Some days I am in big old houses with creaky floors. Other days I am in tiny apartments where the heater is older than me. I drive my work truck from job to job, crawl into tight spaces, get covered in dust, and feel weirdly proud when something broken starts working again because of my hands. I grew up with my mom in a small town a couple hours away. My dad left when I was young. It was just the two of us for most of my life. I call her every week. She always asks if I have met someone nice yet. I always tell her no and change the subject. I have dated a little, but nothing serious. I like my routine, work, a run at the park when the weather is good, some old rock music from Springsteen or Tom Petty in the evenings, maybe a beer with friends on the weekend. Quiet, simple, safe. That was before the night everything shifted. It was my buddy Mark's birthday. I have known Mark since community college. We are not best friends anymore, but we are still close enough for birthdays and group hangs. He threw a party at his place in the suburbs. Nothing wild, just 10 or 12 of us in his living room. String lights across the ceiling, a cake on the coffee table, pizza boxes stacked on the counter, a cooler full of beer in the corner. I came straight from a job where I had spent the afternoon in a stranger's basement fixing a leaky water heater. I still had on my work jeans and a plain t-shirt. Nobody seemed to care. Mark slapped me on the back, handed me a slice of pizza, and pointed me toward the couch. That is when I saw her, Lily. I'd seen her before at a few group hangouts. She is friends with Mark's girlfriend. She is 30, a freelance interior designer, and she has that calm kind of beauty that does not need any effort. Long brown hair pulled into a loose ponytail, a soft sweater and jeans that fit just right, a face that looks serious until she smiles. Then her whole expression changes. We had never talked much, just quick, polite things. "Hey, how's work? Can you pass the chips?" She always seemed friendly, but guarded, like she was careful about who she let in. That night she was sitting across the room with a drink in her hand, listening while everyone talked. As the night went on and the drinks kicked in, the questions started. "So, Lily, are you seeing anyone yet?" one of the girls asked with a teasing grin. "Come on, you never bring anyone around," another added. "Any dates lately?" Lily laughed, but her shoulders stiffened. She tried to change the subject. They pushed again. It was that thing people do when they think it is harmless fun, not seeing how it corners you. I watched from my spot on the couch, feeling a little bad for her, but staying out of it. I know what it feels like to have people poke at your private life like it is a game. After a while, the room felt too warm and too loud. I stepped out onto the back porch for some air. The night was cool. That kind of sharp fall air that smells like leaves and distant smoke. I leaned on the railing and scrolled through my phone, pretending I was not hiding. The door opened behind me with a small creak. I turned and saw Lily step out. She looked tired but relieved to be away from the noise. "You okay?" I asked. She came to stand beside me at the railing, holding her cup with both hands. "Yeah," she said with a small sigh. "They just will not stop asking about who I am dating." I kinda panicked and said I was seeing someone in the group. It worked for about 5 minutes. I smirked. Smart move. "So who is the lucky mystery guy?" Quote. She hesitated, then turned her head and looked straight at me. There was nervous energy in her eyes, but also something like hope. "Sam," she said, "can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a while?" I blinked. "Right now?" She nodded. "Just tonight. Just in there. We go back in, act like we are together, and they stop turning my love life into a party game. No drama, no strings." I let out a short laugh and raised an eyebrow. "Do we have to kiss too?" Her eyes widened and she almost choked on her drink. A blush crept into her cheeks. "No," she said quickly, then softened. "I mean only if you want to sell it. I am just asking for a little backup. You seem normal, reliable. The other guys would make it weird later. You would not." She looked away when she said that last part, like she was not used to asking for help. I looked at her for a long second. I could have said no. Could have gone back to my quiet corner and my safe, simple life. Instead, I heard myself say, "All right, I am in. But we need a story." Her shoulders dropped in relief. A small smile tugged at her lips. "Okay," she said, thinking fast. "We have been seeing each other for about a month. We met through mutual friends at a party. You fixed a broken fan. I almost spilled water on you. You work HVAC. I do interior design. We got coffee. It clicked. Keep it light. Keep it simple." "Got it," I said. "I can handle simple." When we walked back into the living room, her whole body language changed. She slipped her arm through mine like she had been doing it for years. Her head tilted toward my shoulder. Her smile was easy. "Everyone," she said, a little louder than before. "This is Sam, my boyfriend, the one I told you about." A ripple went through the room. A couple of people raised their brows. Mark's girlfriend grinned. "Well, it is about time," someone said. Sit, tell us everything." We sat down together on the couch. Lily kept her hand on my arm. I could feel the warmth of her palm through my sleeve. "So how did you two meet?" one of the guys asked. I took a breath and jumped in. "At a party," I said. "I was fixing a ceiling fan in the kitchen, and she almost dumped water on my head. I thought it was the end of me." Lily laughed and rolled her eyes. "He is being dramatic. I saved the fan and his hair." We started talking, then grabbed coffee later. "And what do you like about him?" another friend asked, leaning forward. She glanced at me, then back at them. "He shows up," she said simply, "on time, every time, and he listens. That is rare." It was such a small answer, but it hit me in a strange way. They turned to me. "What about you, Sam? Why Lily?" I looked at her, at the way her eyes were bright, but a little guarded even now. "She knows who she is," I said. "She has opinions and does not pretend to be someone else for anyone." That is rare, too. The table went quiet for a half second. Then someone made a joke about setting the bar too high. The moment passed. The party rolled on with new topics, and just like that, the questions about her love life stopped. We kept the act going. She leaned into me when she laughed. I refilled her drink when I got my own. Our stories matched without effort. It felt less like lying and more like stepping into something that had been waiting for us. When the night started to die down and people grabbed their coats, Lily slipped her arm from mine. Her cheeks were pink, her eyes softer than I had ever seen them. "Thank you," she said quietly near the door. "You really saved me tonight." "Friends help friends," I said. "Even fake ones." She smiled at that, and for a second it felt like there was more in that look than gratitude. Then she turned to say goodbye to the others. I walked out to my truck under the cool Milwaukee sky, the air smelling like wet pavement and cold. On the drive home, I kept replaying the night, her hand on my arm, her laugh. The way she said I show up, it was supposed to be a simple favor, a pretend boyfriend for one evening. The next morning, my phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while I was pouring coffee. I wiped my hands and picked it up. Lily's name was on the screen. When I picked up my phone, there was a simple message from her. "Hope my friends didn't scare you off. Thanks again for last night." I leaned against the counter, coffee in one hand, phone in the other. My first instinct was to keep it cool, no big deal. So I typed back. "They were fine. You owe me danger pay, though. Fake boyfriend work is risky." A second later, she replied with a laughing emoji and another text. "Good, because I kind of told them we would both come to brunch next weekend. Think you can handle one more round?" I stared at that for a moment. One night was easy. Brunch felt like another step, but my chest warmed a little at the idea of seeing her again. Not as the quiet woman in the corner, as the guy sitting next to her. "Yeah," I wrote back. "Tell me when and where. I will bring my best acting skills." Sunday, 11. Little cafe on Brady Street, she sent. Thanks, Sam. Really? The week rolled by in a blur of work. I spent my days crawling into attics, checking vents, and replacing old filters. The usual calls. A broken furnace in a small brick house. A cranky water heater in an old duplex. People complained about the cold, about bills, about the team the night before. I nodded and did my job, but in the quiet moments between jobs, my mind kept going back to Lily on that porch, to how her arm felt hooked through mine, to the way she had relaxed once we walked in together, like she could breathe again. Sunday came with clear skies and that sharp fall air that wakes you up the minute you step outside. I pulled on a clean shirt, nicer jeans, and grabbed my truck keys. As I drove toward Brady Street, my stomach did a slow flip. It felt like a real date, even though we had agreed it was just pretend. The cafe was a small corner place with big windows and little tables packed close together. The smell of coffee and baked bread hit me as soon as I opened the door. I spotted the group right away at a long table near the back. Lily saw me first. She lifted her hand and waved, a real smile lighting up her face. She wore a simple dark green sweater and jeans, her hair down around her shoulders. She looked relaxed, but her eyes flashed with relief when I walked over. "Hey," I said, sliding into the seat next to her. "Hey," she replied softly. "You came." "Of course," I said. "You did promise me food." She laughed and the tension eased. Her hand brushed my arm under the table, a light squeeze like a quiet thank you. Her friends jumped right in. "So this is the famous Sam," one of the guys said. "We have heard stories." "Good ones," Lily added quickly. I played along. "I hope she told you I am very good at fixing broken fans and carrying heavy grocery bags." They laughed. The server came by and we ordered eggs, toast, pancakes, coffee, orange juice. The table grew loud and busy. "Tell us how you two met again," one of the women asked, leaning on her elbow. "I want the full version." Lily glanced at me and I picked up the story, adding small details. "She spilled her drink," I said. "I saved it like a hero." "You are such a liar," she said, bumping my shoulder with hers. "He almost crashed into the counter. It was not smooth at all." "Look, I am good with tools," I said. "Not with grace." The table laughed again. As we talked, it started to feel less like a cover story and more like a memory we actually shared. We finished each other's answers without planning it. She joked about how I always text her that I am on my way 10 minutes early. I teased her about her habit of over-analyzing restaurant menus. At one point, while she was telling a story about a disaster design job with a client who wanted everything painted dark purple, her hand slipped onto my knee under the table. It stayed there, warm, steady. She did not even seem to notice at first, but I did. My chest clenched, not in a bad way, in a way that told me this was no longer just a favor. By the time the check came and everyone started talking about their weekend plans, it felt like we were the couple we were pretending to be. Her friends teased us lightly, but the questions had shifted from, "Are you seeing anyone?" to, "When are we all hanging out again?" Outside on the sidewalk, the group split off in different directions. Lily and I stood there for a second, the wind lifting her hair. "You were great," she said. "They totally buy it now." "Happy to serve," I said. "Professional fake boyfriend at your service." She looked at me for a long second, searching my face. "Sam," she said quietly, "is this weird for you?" I thought about lying, about saying it was nothing, but being around her made it hard to lie, even to protect myself. "A little," I said, "but not in a bad way." A small smile tugged at her lips. "Same." We said goodbye with a hug, not a quick, awkward one, a slow, warm one. Her head rested for a second against my chest. My arms wrapped around her back. I felt her exhale. When I drove away, I could still smell her shampoo on my shirt. The weeks after that, the fake dating did not stop. It grew. There was a group hike up in the hills the next weekend. She texted me. They invited us. "Can you still be my backup boyfriend?" I replied, "Only if there are snacks." We met at the trailhead, both in worn sneakers and hoodies. The air was crisp. The sky clear. the trees around us starting to shift into shades of gold and red. We walked with the group, talking and laughing, but somehow we kept drifting to the edges where it was just us. She told me about a big design job she had landed with a couple who wanted to turn their boring living room into a reading space. I told her about a client with a furnace older than my mom. We made each other laugh, and the slope of the trail did the rest, slowing us down, forcing us to walk side by side, shoulder to shoulder. At one point, the path narrowed and she slipped her hand into mine. No one was looking. No one asked why. She just did it. My hand closed around hers like that was where it belonged. Later, there was a game night at another friend's apartment. Cards, charades, old songs playing from someone's playlist. We were a team for every game. We won most of them, guessing each other's clues with almost no words. Everyone groaned and called us unbeatable. We make a good team, she said as we sat close on the floor, shoulders touching. Yeah, I said, we do. That night, when we walked to our cars under the yellow streetlights, the air felt heavy and soft. We stopped by her car door, faces close, our breath leaving small clouds in the air. You ever feel like we are not pretending anymore? She asked, her voice quiet. I swallowed, my heart pounding. Yeah, I said, I feel that. Her eyes searched mine for a second, then she leaned in and kissed me. It was not a big dramatic movie kiss. It was slow and careful, her lips soft and warm against mine. I froze for half a heartbeat, then kissed her back. Every fake laugh, every borrowed story, every hand on my arm led to that moment. When we pulled away, we both stood still, breathing a little faster. Good night, Sam, she whispered, her voice a little shaky. Good night, Lily, I said. I watched her get into her car and drive off. My hands were still buzzing when I unlocked my truck. As I pulled out onto the quiet street, one thought cut through the noise in my head. Whatever this started as, it was not a game anymore. After that first kiss, nothing and everything changed at the same time. We did not sit down and have a long talk about it. We did not label anything that night. The next morning, my phone buzzed like it always did, and there was a text from Lily. Morning. Hope your day treats you better than that old furnace you mentioned. I stared at the screen, waiting for something about the kiss, but it did not come. Instead of poking at it, I replied. Morning. Headed to a cranky boiler now. If I do not make it, tell people I died a hero. She sent back a laughing emoji and a picture of her sketchbook, a half-finished drawing of a living room layout. Try not to die. I still need fake boyfriend services. The word fake made my chest tighten a little, but I let it go. For now, the days rolled into a new kind of normal. We still met up with the group, still played the roles everyone expected. Her hand would slide into mine when eyes were on us. I would pull out her chair, brush hair from her face, lean in to whisper a joke. No one questioned it. To them, we were just a couple who had been together for a bit. But when we were alone, the act fell away, and what was left felt more real than anything I had known in a long time. She started coming over more often on her own, not just for group plans. One Tuesday night, she texted, "Bad day, client nightmare. Can I bring takeout and complain on your couch?" I wrote back, "Door is open. I accept payment in egg rolls." She showed up in leggings and an oversized hoodie, hair in a messy bun, carrying a bag that smelled like sesame and garlic. We sat cross-legged on the floor, cartons spread out on the coffee table. She ranted about a client who wanted minimalist but cozy but also bold, all at once. I told her about a landlord who blamed me for a water leak I did not cause. At some point, her rant faded. We ended up leaning back against the couch, shoulders touching. The room was quiet, except for the soft hum of the fridge. "You know," she said softly, "this is my favorite part. Not the pretending. This. Just sitting here." "Yeah," I said. "Mine, too." She turned her head toward me, and I could see all of it in her eyes. The fear, the hope, the pull. I leaned in and kissed her again, this time slower, deeper. Her fingers slid up to the back of my neck, and the world shrank to the feel of her mouth on mine, and the warmth of her body pressed close. After that night, there was no pretending between us when we were alone. She started leaving a toothbrush in my bathroom, then a pair of slippers by the door. One Sunday morning, she stood in my kitchen wearing one of my old flannel shirts and said, "You know you have no decent coffee mugs, right?" "Hey," I said, "that chipped one has history." She smiled and shook her head. "Then I guess I will just have to fix that." Next week, 2 new mugs showed up in my cabinet. One had a small mountain print, the other had tiny painted houses. We found a rhythm. On early mornings, I would head to work while she still lay in my bed, curled up in the blankets. On some nights when her projects ran late, I would show up at her apartment instead with a pizza box and a 6-pack. We would work side by side at her small dining table, her sketching room layouts while I filled out invoices, our knees brushing under the wood. But as good as it felt, something else started to grow in the back of my mind. Guilt. Mark. He and I were not as close as we used to be, but we had history. Late-night study sessions in college. Road trips with bad playlists and cheap gas station snacks. He had talked about Lena back then like she was his anchor. I had been at their wedding. I had watched it all fall apart from the outside. I knew he and Lily were done. I knew she had her own side of that story. Still, I could not shake the feeling that I was crossing a line by falling for his ex. Lily saw it before I even said anything. One night she caught me staring out at the parking lot, quiet, my hand wrapped around a beer I was not drinking. "Where did you go just now?" she asked, sitting beside me on the couch. I shrugged. "Just thinking." "About?" "Mark," I admitted. "About you and him." "About me and him." She pulled her legs up under her and faced me fully. "You two do not really talk anymore, right?" she asked. "Not much," I said. "Birthdays. Random memes once in a while." "But he was important to me once. I keep thinking about his face if he found out." She looked down at her hands. "You know how it was with us. We tried for a long time. In the end, it was just 2 people who could not meet in the middle anymore. He wanted someone who fit his path. I wanted someone who saw me. We broke each other more than we built each other. I am not proud of how messy it got, but it is over." Her voice softened. "Do you regret this with me, Sam?" The question hit me hard. I shook my head. "No, I do not regret any of this. That is the problem. I want you. I just do not want to feel like I am betraying someone who used to matter." She nodded slowly. "Then maybe the only way through is to stop hiding. Tell him." The idea made my stomach twist, but deep down I knew she was right. If I kept pretending this was just a small thing, it would start to poison what we had. A few days later, I sent Mark a text. "Hey man, coffee this weekend? Need to talk about something important." He replied faster than I thought he would. "Sure." Usual place? Quote, "Saturday afternoon, we met at the same bar we had wasted so many nights in during our early 20s. It smelled like stale beer and hot wings. Same cracked pool table. Same neon signs." He looked older, more tired around the eyes, but still the same broad frame and quick smirk. "Long time," he said, clapping my shoulder as we sat. "Yeah," I said. "Too long." We talked about small stuff first. Work, the team, old classmates. My heart pounded harder with every minute. Finally, I set my beer down and looked him in the eye. "I am just going to say it," I said. "I have been seeing Lily." His smile disappeared that second. His jaw tightened. "Lily," he repeated, like he wanted to be sure he heard right. "My ex-wife, Lily." I nodded. "We ran into each other by accident. A blind date thing. We did not plan it. It just happened." He let out a dry laugh with no humor in it. "And you thought it was a good idea," he said. "You thought going after my ex was fair game." "It was not like that," I said. "It started as a favor. She needed someone to pretend to be her boyfriend, and then it just grew. We clicked. I did not come here to rub it in. I came because I respect you enough to tell you to your face." He leaned forward, eyes hard. "You respect me," he said. "That is funny. You had years, man. Any girl in the world, and you picked the one I used to wake up next to. You know what it was like when we fell apart? You saw me at my worst. You saw me drunk and angry and broken, and now you want me to smile and wish you luck?" His voice rose. A couple of people at nearby tables glanced our way. "I am not asking you to be happy about it," I said quietly. "I am just telling you the truth. I care about her. She cares about me." He stared at me for a long time. The noise of the bar faded around us. "You are not the guy the first thought you were," he said finally. If you were, you would have stayed away." He stood, threw some cash on the table, and walked out without looking back. I sat there with my hands wrapped around my beer and a knot in my throat. I had known it could go like that. It still hurt. On the drive home, my phone buzzed. Lily. "Well?" "Not good," I typed. "Can I come over?" "Always," she replied. When she opened her apartment door, I did not even get a word out before she wrapped her arms around me. I held her close, breathing in the soft scent of her shampoo, feeling the steady beat of her heart against my chest. "What did he say?" she asked quietly. "That I am not the guy he thought I was," I said. "That if I respected him, I would have stayed away from you." She flinched like the words hit her too. Her eyes filled but did not spill over. "You can walk away," she said. "Right now, I would understand. I do not want to be the reason you lose someone from your past." I pulled back just enough to see her face. "I am not walking away," I said. "He is my past, Lily. You are my present. And if I am lucky, you are my future. I am done living safe so no one gets upset." For a long moment we just looked at each other, breathing the same air. There was pain in the room. But there was also something stronger. She took my hand and led me inside. "Then we move forward," she said, "even if it hurts." I did not know what that future would look like. I did not know if Mark would ever speak to me again. All I knew was that I had chosen her. And that choice was about to be tested in ways neither of us saw coming. After that talk with Mark, it felt like someone had slammed a door on a part of my past. It hurt, but when I walked into Lily's place that night and she wrapped her arms around me, I knew which door I wanted open. We sat on her couch, the room dim and quiet, Clara music humming from her small speaker. She listened to every word I said, every ugly detail of what Mark had thrown at me, then just held my hand and said one thing. "We move forward. Together." That was the moment I knew I was all in. The next months slid into a calm that did not feel boring. It felt steady. Lily was at my place almost every night. One evening she showed up with a small duffel bag and this crooked little smile. "I brought a few things," she said. "Toothbrush, a couple of shirts, some books. I hope that is okay." I laughed and opened my closet. I cleared a drawer, shifted some hangers, and handed her a stack of empty space. "Good thing I like you," I said. She stepped close, kissed me slow, and whispered that she liked me too. A lot. Soon my apartment did not look like mine alone. Her sketchbooks piled up on the coffee table. Little plants appeared on the windowsill. A sweater of hers hung on the back of a chair. Mornings became our routine. I would get up first, start the coffee, and she would wander in wearing one of my old flannel shirts, hair messy, eyes half closed. She would sit on the counter while I scrambled eggs or toasted bread and talk about a new project or a book she was reading. I would complain about a broken furnace or a rude landlord. It felt like we had lived together for years, even though it had only been months. The big change came one quiet evening. I was on the couch flipping channels when she came out of the bathroom holding a small white stick in her hand. Her face was pale and her voice shook a little. "Sam, I think I am pregnant." My heart stopped and then started again twice as fast. I took the test from her and saw the 2 lines. For a moment the room spun. Then I pulled her into my arms. "Are you okay?" I asked. She nodded, pressing her face to my chest, scared, but also kind of happy. "How do you feel?" "Terrified," I said, and then I laughed. "And really happy." From that point on, our lives shifted around the tiny person we had not even met yet. Doctor visits, vitamins, eating better, reading baby books. She would lay on the couch and guide my hand over her stomach when the baby kicked. "Feel that," she would say, eyes shining. "That is our kid saying hello." At night we lay in bed and whispered about names. One evening she rolled onto her side and said, "I like Clara." Simple and bright. I smiled. "Clara Sanders. I like that." When our daughter finally arrived, the world narrowed to one hospital room and one tiny newborn cry. The labor was long and brutal. I held Lily's hand for hours, wiped sweat from her forehead, and whispered that she was strong when she said she could not push anymore. Then suddenly there she was, this small, wrinkled bundle, with a powerful set of lungs. The nurse placed her in Lily's arms, and I swear the whole world went quiet. Lily smiled through tears, whispering hello to our daughter while I stood there, hand over both of them, feeling my heart break open in the best way. The first weeks at home were hard, nights blurred into days. We took turns rocking Clara, pacing the small apartment while she screamed for reasons we did not always understand. Lily was gentle and patient, but I saw the tired lines under her eyes. She brushed it off as new mom life. I believed her until the exhaustion turned into something heavier. She got a strange pain in her chest and brushed that off too. I pushed her to see a doctor, just to be safe. The call from the clinic came on a gray afternoon. I was home with Clara when Lily walked in, her face too calm. "We need to talk," she said. My chest went cold. We sat at the table. She took my hand, then let it go and stared at the wood grain. "They found a lump. They think it is breast cancer." My ears rang. For a second I could not even hear the rest. Words like stage and treatment and chemo floated around us like smoke. All I knew was that she looked small and scared in front of me, and I needed to be solid. That night she cried harder than I had ever seen. "What if Clara does not remember me?" she whispered, fingers clawed into my shirt. "What if I do not make it?" I held her as close as I could. "We fight," I said, "every day, with every bit of strength we have. You are not alone in this." When her hair started to fall out weeks later, she stood in the bathroom with a handful of it, tears streaming down her face. I went and grabbed my clippers. "Sit," I said gently. "We are doing this together." I shaved her head while she watched in the mirror. When it was done, I kissed the top of her scalp and told her she had never looked more fierce. Chemo was ugly. She was sick and weak, sometimes angry, sometimes quiet. There were days she snapped at me over nothing and then apologized 1 minute later. I never once thought about leaving. I cooked simple food she could keep down, held her over the toilet when she got sick, carried Clara when her arms shook too much. Mom came to stay and take some of the load. Friends dropped off meals. But most nights it was just us three, curled up on the couch, cartoons playing for background noise while I held my two girls close. Then came scan day. We sat in the cold waiting room, my fingers laced with hers, Clara at home with my mom. The doctor walked in with a folder and a careful smile. "The chemo worked. No sign of the tumor. You are in remission." I closed my eyes and let out a breath I felt like I had been holding for months. Lily covered her face with her hands and sobbed, this time from relief. I pulled her into my chest and held on as hard as I could. Life after that was a slow climb back to normal. Her strength came back little by little. She started designing again, first from home, then part-time. I went back to full shifts, but never forgot what mattered. We took Clara to the park, pushed her in the swing, watched her chase pigeons with that wild baby laugh. Every checkup was scary, but each clear result gave us a little more space to breathe. One Saturday morning, Clara asleep in her crib, sunlight pouring into the kitchen, I watched Lily make pancakes at the stove. Her hair had started to grow in soft and short, curling around her ears. She turned and caught me staring. "What?" she asked with a small smile. I shook my head. "Nothing. Just thinking about that party where you asked me to fake being your boyfriend." She laughed and stepped closer, sliding her arms around my waist. "Best deal I ever made," she said. A few months later, we stood in a small park by the river with my mom, a handful of friends, and Clara holding a little bunch of flowers. We said simple vows under a tree, just promises to keep showing up and not run when things got hard. The officiant pronounced us husband and wife. I kissed Lily, slow and sure, while our daughter clapped her tiny hands. That night on our worn couch, Clara finally asleep, Lily curled up against me and rested her head on my shoulder. She looked up with that same quiet spark from the porch long ago. "Remember when I asked you to pretend to be my boyfriend for a while?" she said. I smiled and kissed her forehead. "Yeah. And I asked if we had to kiss too." She nodded, fingers tracing circles on my chest. "I am glad you said yes." "So am I," said, "because nothing about this is pretend anymore."